Start.
July 1934, the accident. I got burned bad. Daddy put a pail of kerosene next to the stove and Ma fixing breakfast, thinking the pail was filled with water, lifted it to make Daddy's coffee, poured it, but instead of making coffee, Ma made a rope of fire. It rose up from the stove to the pail, and the kerosene burst into flames. Ma ran across the kitchen, out the porch door, screaming for Daddy! Daddy! I tore after her then, thinking of the burning pail left behind in the bone-dry kitchen. I went back and grabbed it, throwing it out the door. I didn't know. I didn't know Ma was coming back. The flaming oil splashed onto her apron and suddenly Ma was a column of fire. I pushed her to the ground, desperate to save her, desperate to save the baby. I tried, beating out the flames with my hands. I did the best I could, but it was no good. Ma got burned bad. In her poetic writing, Out of the Dust, poet Karen Hess tells the story of a young girl suffering from the guilt of a terrible, terrible accident. Her story helps paint the picture that establishes my argument. We must forgive ourselves in order to heal, and wounds can be both physical and emotional. Out of the Dust by Karen Hess. Burns. At first, I felt no pain, only heat. I thought I might be swallowed by the heat, like the witch in Hansel and Gretel, and nothing would be left of me. Someone brought Doc rice. He tended Ma first, then came to me. The doctor cut away the skin on my hands. It hung in crested stripes. He cut away my skin with scissors, then poked my skin with pins to see if I could feel. He bathed my burns in antiseptic. Only then the pain came. Nightmare. I am awake now, still shaking from my dream. I was coming home through a howling dust storm. My lower face was scrubbed raw with dust and wind. Grit scratched my eyes and crunched between my teeth. Shan chafed inside my clothes, against my skin. Dust crept inside my ears, up my nose, down my throat. I shuddered, nasty with dust. In the house, dust blew through the cracks in the walls. It covered the floorboards and heaped against the doors. It flooded in the air, everywhere. I don't care about anyone, anything, only the piano. I searched for it, found it, under a mound of dust. I was angry at Ma for letting in the dust. I cleaned off the keys, but when I played, a tortured sound came from the piano, like someone shrieking. I hit the keys with my fist, and the piano broke into 100 pieces. Daddy called to me. He asked me to bring water. Ma was thirsty. I brought up a pail of fire, and Ma drank it. She had given birth to a baby of flames. The baby burned at her side. I ran away to the Eaton's farm. The house had been tractored out, tipped off its foundation. No one could live there. Everywhere I looked were dusts of rippled dust. The wind roared like fire. The door to the house hung open, and there was dust several feet deep. And then there was a piano. The bench was gone right through the floor. The piano leaned towards me. I stood and played. The relief I felt to hear the sound of music after the sound of the piano at home. I dragged the Eaton's piano through the dust to our house. But when I got there, I couldn't play. I had swollen lumps for hands. They dripped a sickly pus. They swung stupidly from my wrists. They stung with pain. When I woke up, the part about my hands was real. A tent of pain. Daddy has made a tent out of the sheet over Ma, so nothing will touch her skin. What skin she has left. I can't look at her. I can't recognize her. She smells like scorched meat, her body groaning there. It looks nothing like my Ma. It doesn't even have a face. Daddy brings her water and drips it inside the slit of her mouth by squeezing a cloth. She can't open her eyes. She cries out when the baby moves inside her. Otherwise she moans day and night. I wish the dust would plug my ears so I couldn't hear her. Drinking. Daddy found the money and Ma kept squirreled in the kitchen under the threshold. It wasn't very much, but it was enough for him to get good and drunk. He went out last night. While Ma moaned and begged for water, he drank up the emergency money until it was gone. I tried to help her. I couldn't aim the dripping cloth into her mouth. I couldn't squeeze. It hurt the blisters on my hands to try. I only made it worse for Ma. She cried for the pain of the water running over her sores. She cried for the water that would not soothe her throat and quench her thirst. And the whole time, my father was in gunman, drinking, devoured. Doc sent me outside to get water. Today was so hot, the house was so hot. As I came out the door, I saw the cloud descending. It whirled like 1,000 engines. It shifted shape as it came settling over Daddy's wheat. Grasshoppers, eating leaves, tassels, and stalks. Then coming closer to the house, eating Ma's garden, the fence posts, the laundry on the line. And then the grasshoppers came right over to me, descending on Ma's apple trees. I climbed into the trees, opening scabs on my tender hands, grasshoppers clinging to me. I tried beating them away, but the grasshoppers ate every leaf. They ate every piece of fruit. Nothing left but a couple of apple cores hanging from Ma's trees. I couldn't tell it. Couldn't bring myself to say her apples were gone. I never had a chance. Ma died that day, gave birth to my brother. I really hate fire.